Hello, creators, and welcome to Rediscovering Be Something Wonderful, where we revisit timeless classics from deep within our video archives. What you're about to hear is not about trying to manifest your desired life, but about remembering that you are the source already living it. You've been taught that reality creation and manifesting require something: a better mindset, clearer thoughts, stronger beliefs, or the right techniques and processes. You've been taught that there's a physical reality out there to change, influence, or manipulate. But those assumptions are the only things standing in the way. Everything you see, feel, do, touch, and experience comes from what appears to be nothing. Because nothing is not absence. It is source. It is the very substance of all that is. When you stop trying to add something to yourself or change something about yourself, and instead recognize that you are the awareness that exists before anything appears, you command your reality, all of it. You were never meant to struggle your way into fulfillment. You were meant to remember where everything actually comes from. You as the one and only reality, I am. This message doesn't teach you how to manifest. It dissolves the illusion that you ever started from lack or needed to manifest anything at all. Now, let's open the vault once again and receive this powerful message that reality doesn't change out there. Rather, you choose who you are, and that changes everything. Welcome back to Be Something Wonderful. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of higher consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, welcome back. Big video today on December 24th, 2022. And we're going to talk about the idea of manifesting anything out of nothing. In other words, we're going to talk about the immaculate conception and the virgin birth, right? This really is what Neville Goddard talks about when he talks about the true meaning of Christmas. And we're also going to touch on A Course in Miracles as they relate and talk about this as well. And as this relates of you, really of how you create everything you want out of nothing. You pull everything from the unseen into the seen, into 3D reality. I also want to start and talk about the questions that came up on the video yesterday regarding the teachings of Abraham Hicks. Because one of my clients, as you know, 2 days ago was asking about, they were mentioning that they were a vibrational snob. And what they meant when they said that was that they're always trying to feel better or think better thoughts, right? That they align with the idea that there's nothing more important than feeling good. This is what Abraham Hicks says, right? And that they take it to the extent, or they take it to mean, that they need to avoid toxic or negative people or toxic or negative circumstances as they judge those circumstances. And then one of you wrote on the channel, and I certainly understand your point, to say that they misinterpreted that the teachings of Abraham Hicks, of what the meaning of vibrational snob means. And I think one of you pointed out that they mean to focus on your desired outcome or focus on what you want. And I don't disagree with any of that. And then you said that Abraham Hicks and Neville Goddard, there's no difference between their teachings and that it's all the same. And I don't necessarily disagree with that either. But I just want to say that definitely all the teachers talk about focusing on your desired end and focusing on what you want. And they all do talk about you can be, do, or have anything you want, like Abraham Hicks. And they talk about your absolute unlimitedness. We can all agree on that. But the way they approach it, art is different. That's the variety that makes all of these great spiritual greats and all of these wonderful YouTube channels and all of these wonderful creators amazing, because it all comes from a different point of view, all comes from a different vantage point. So I just want to point out, vibrational snob, as my clients were pointing out, they didn't really misinterpret it, but they just interpreted it in the way that it's focused more on thoughts and feelings, making that the primary point. And if you get those right, then you can have what you want. That's how they're interpreting it. And I get it that Abraham, remember, I was on the hot seat. I've gone to a lot of Abraham Hicks seminars. They're all great. All the spiritual teachers have the same message, right? I get that it's focused on your one, but here's the definition of vibrational snob, as defined by the community, the Abraham Hicks community. A person that knows that nothing is more important than feeling good, and deliberately chooses to focus on thoughts and emotions that feel good. Deliberate creator, right? This is the real crux of the Abraham Hicks teachings, right? This vibrational, choosing better feeling thoughts, right? And the only point that I was making is that I don't disagree that feeling good is important. And you could even argue it's the most important thing. But what I want to say, really, what is the most important thing? Focusing on what you want, your desired outcome, your end result. Why? That wills the means to everything else. And when you're connected with your end, when you're connected with your imagined end, your end result, when you're connected with the love of what you desire, when you're connected to your heart's desire, then you're going to feel good and you're going to think thoughts that are connected to that desire. Do you see it? That it's the focus on the end that higher power moves through you. And then you're going to feel good. Right? When do we feel negative? When we feel separate from what we want. When we feel separate from our heart's desire. When we feel separate from our desired outcome or our end result. But we feel good when we feel connected to it. So when you focus on it, when you put your focus and attention on the end result versus the temporary thoughts and feelings and the temporary conditions in 3D, then you're going to feel good. Then it's going to come to you. Otherwise, you're just trapped in the messy middle of trying to feel better, trying to think better feeling thoughts, trying to get the 3D conditions just right, trying to avoid them or fix them or arrange them so you feel good. Do you see this? That's all we were getting up. Where this vibrational snob idea is more of a bottoms-up approach, and the idea of focusing on just your desired end, and knowing that the thoughts and feelings will result from that is a top-down approach. Who are you? Right? Like the question that Jesus asked, am I? Who do people say I am? Decide on that self-concept, that version of yourself. Or in other words, your desired end, your desired reality, and everything else will fall in place under that. Right? It's that where that natural ability and that higher power works through you. Here, you're getting caught in the swing circle. You're getting caught in the processes. You're getting caught in trying to feel good. And now your focus isn't on your desired end. And then that higher power, your natural ability, can't work through you. You believe conditions have to be a certain way, or you have to think a certain way, or feel a certain way before you get what you want. So that's all we were saying there. This ties in with today's lesson, because Neville Goddard talks about two births. One when God assumes your human form, and the other when you assume the divine form of God. So Christmas is about man becoming God, right? Being born as God versus God being born as man, right? The first birth is from below, while the second birth, called Christmas, is from above, right? It's you becoming conscious and aware of being God. I am, being one with the Father or your imagination. He who has seen me has seen the Father. This is what Jesus said to his disciples when they were pressing us. Just show us the Father. In other words, show us imagination. I am. They're talking to their I am to say, show me God. Show me my imagination when I am is the door. I am the way. I am the door. I am the light. I am the life. That your I am is all of that. That's why Jesus says, He who has seen me has seen the Father. Right? That's powerful. So Christmas, this is what Neville says, Christmas marks the birth of man as God, not the birth of God as man. It's the second birth. That's what Christmas marks. What a beautiful thing to say. What a beautiful way to look at it. Right? It's the birth of your recognition, your awareness, your realization as I am, as imagination, as the idea that you're unlimited, totally unlimited spiritual being. Right? It's rising in consciousness to the knowing that you can be, do, or have whatever you want when you focus on that desired end, as I am. When you affirm that assumption. You are God's and all are sons of the Most High. This is what Scripture has said. And then Neville even talks about good versus evil when we were talking about that a few days ago, where some of you were adverse to the idea that there's only all God. And God, and you were saying, well, God, everything's God, but not evil. And what we're saying is that evil can't exist in the light of God, in the light of love. That there's only love and there's only God. And that any evil is an experience, is a choice, not conscious. Most of the time it's not a conscious choice, it's an unconscious choice. But the evil's an experience, right? Remember, this is what he says, God became you, and containing all, God is absolute. First statement Neville says is God is absolute, like we said a few days ago. The world teaches you that God is all good and never evil. This is what we say. This is what you said, right? God is all good. God's not evil. They're not the same thing you were saying, right? But if we say that God's absolute and all good, then God is all. And then if God is all, and you're saying that evil exists, then God must have, contained within God must be evil. But we're saying that evil is just a thought. It's a narrow perception. It's not. It's a partial perception of reality, right? But if there is evil and God is not evil, then God is not absolute. Do you see it? If you're saying there's evil and God is not evil, then God's not absolute, and that's impossible because God is absolute. God is all love. It's very clear here, guys. And I get it. You want explanations of what about when this happens or when someone's hurt or someone's harmed. Again, every spiritual teacher from the beginning of time has talked about this, right? And there's only love, there's only God. But how you experience that, you have the free will. And when you're unconscious and you're not aware of that love within you, you're not aware of that I am awareness, when you haven't had that second birth, right, as I am, as realizing your divinity, your imagination, then you're not realizing, then you're thinking there's a possibility of evil, right? Because you're stuck in the illusion of evil, right? So we've talked about that. Let's move on to the lesson today. God actually became as you the moment you breathe, for breath and spirit are one and the same in Hebrew and Greek. I love this. Right? Because really, what is when anyone talks about meditation, there's a discussion about breathing. Why? Because breath is life. Breath represents spirit. It represents the breath of God. It represents the way, the light, the life of everything. And that's what that means, actually. Breathe, for breath and spirit are one and the same in Hebrew and Greek. I love that. The immaculate conception. This is where Neville talks about it. Now, if everything in my world depends upon a state of consciousness, it would be the height of insanity to seek the thing before I actually fix myself the state on which the thing depends. Wow. For that which requires a state of consciousness to produce its effect cannot be effected without such a state of consciousness. Hear this. Do you see this? So it's not trying to feel good or get a thought that feels good or work from the bottom up to try to get to what you want. Instead, you go to the state because it depends on the state of consciousness. So it would be the height of insanity to seek the thing before I actually fix myself in the state. In other words, to get lost in the thoughts and feelings about it, to get lost in the 3D conditions about it. Trying to move to that desired end without focusing on it. You're getting lost in the thoughts and feelings. Assume the state. Assume the desired end. Assume the end result. Get us moved to that state, right? Because everything in my world depends on a state of consciousness, right? And without that state, right, to produce the effect, it cannot be affected without such a state of consciousness. Do you see it? Unless you create the state, the version of yourself, the reality from the top down, you cannot create that state. You get lost in the swing circle. You get lost in the messy middle of thoughts and feelings, and temporary thoughts and feelings and temporary 3D conditions. So when I know what I want to support that, when I know what I want to support that, to support what I want, there is an invisible state of consciousness. In the wanting of it, in the desire of it, when you focus on that desired end, that imagined end, that end result, there's an invisible state of consciousness created. That's the immaculate conception. The immaculate conception of your desire, of that state of consciousness, is invisible, it's unseen. But it was unaided by anybody. It didn't come from the outside, it came from within you. And then you have the virgin birth, which represents the manifestation in 3D reality, right? It's not about temporary thoughts and feelings. All states of consciousness and versions of yourself contain an infinite variety of thoughts, feelings, and emotions. All of them, right? Whether you want to be that person, that version of yourself that has that beautiful house, or that is wealthy, or that is in perfect health, or that is in love and married to their SP, all of those states are going to have a variety of thoughts and feelings, temporary thoughts and feelings, and temporary conditions. None of those determine the outcome of that state. What determines the outcome is your focus and intention on it, your assumption that you're in it, your imaginal end. You're creating it in imagination, creating that and keeping your light on that state, lighting up that state of consciousness, right? Then Neville goes on to say, that is the mystery. A self-begotten child, conceived unaided by another and carried faithfully into the womb of God. Remember, Mary was a virgin. It was a virgin birth, unaided by a man, right? Carried faithfully in the womb of God, which is the mind of man. Remember, the mind of man is the divine mind of God. You are a center of God consciousness, right? It was placed there without the aid of another, by man's desire. You placed it there by imagining it, by creating the invisible state. You had that immaculate conception of what you want, what you desire. You went to the end, right? You saw the end result. You weren't stuck in the swing circle of temporary thoughts and feelings and temporary 3D conditions, right? And people, events, and circumstances. So it was created there. That was the immaculate conception. That's the virgin conception. Here is where Neville talks about the Immaculate Conception, right? The birth of Jesus. That's what that represents, right? The birth of God in you, right? Wow. So, the virgin birth, bringing your desire, your wish, your imagined end, your ideal outcome from the invisible state into the 3D world. That's the virgin birth. So you have the Immaculate Conception, the creation of that invisible state of your desire, of your imagined end. And then as you persist in it, as you persist in that assumption, as you imagine it's already yours, as you walk in that assumption, you bring that desire, that imagined end, that ideal outcome from the invisible state into the 3D world, right? By faith, we understand that the worlds were framed by the Word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. It comes from the invisible realm. It comes from within you. It has nothing to do with those outside 3D circumstances. It's not nothing to do with those temporary thoughts and feelings. It comes from your assumption, from your movement to that desired end, from your focus and attention on the end result. Your focus and attention create reality. We do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. That's powerful, right? That comes from Scripture. So here it goes on to say, he imagines a thing to be. So he persuades himself that it is so and walks faithful to that assumption. Neville got it. You imagine it within. You create it within. You put your focus and your attention on the end result. You don't get caught up in the how. You don't get caught up in your thoughts and feelings and try to resolve those. You don't get caught up in the temporary circumstances outside. You imagine to be. You persuade yourself that is so. You persist in that assumption, in that end. And then you walk faithfully in that assumption. From A Course in Miracles, talking about Christmas. Is it a sacrifice to leave littleness behind and wander not in vain? Leave littleness behind. In other words, leave the temporary thoughts and feelings of doubt and fear behind. Leave the fear of an undesired outcome, the fear of a negative result. Right? Leave that all behind. Leave that doubt behind. It is not sacrifice to wake in glory. In other words, it's not sacrifice to be born in or aware of or rise in the realization of your I am, of that imagination within you. The birth within you, right? The birth of Jesus, that birth of I am within you, right? But it is a sacrifice to accept anything less than glory, right? Learn that you must be worthy of the Prince of Peace, right? Born in you in order of him whose host you are. Wow. You're the host of the Prince of Peace. In honor of him, in honor of what? Of your imagination. In honor of that greater divine, right? Remember, the Father and I are one, but the Father is greater than I. In honor of him, that great divinity, the absolute, right? So that's big. And then this is what your I am is saying. My birth, Jesus, in you is your awakening to grandeur. Welcome me not into a manger, but into the altar to holiness, where holiness abides in a perfect peace. This is Jesus in A Course in Miracles, right? My kingdom is not of this world. This is your I am. Remember, Jesus represents your I am. Your I am is not of this world because it is in you. It's not of this world. It's within you. Your I am, your imagination, right? And you are of the Father. You are of that greater reality, that great one unity, one love, one divinity, one power, one energy, one God, one good. Let us join in honoring you, who must remain forever beyond littleness. It's not good to know beyond the little 3D you, beyond the limitations, beyond the lack, the doubt, the fear, right? Beyond being trapped in the swing circle of processes and thoughts and feelings about how to reconcile, how to get your desired outcome, what you must do to get it. None of that, right? The sign of Christmas is a star, a light in darkness. See it not outside yourself, but shining in the heaven within, and accept it as the sign the time of Christ has come. Wow. In other words, see it as that the birth of that I am within you, the birth of your recognition, your awareness that you can be, do, or have whatever your heart desires. The birth of your recognition or your awareness that you can claim and assume what you want. And as you focus on that desired end, as you imagine a simple imaginal scene, a simple imaginal act, that it's already yours. You could feel yourself being congratulated. If you're getting married, you could see the ring on your finger. You could see yourself surrounded by friends and others. You could see yourself getting that promotion in that new job, right? You can feel the abundance within. You can see yourself. And with that, you can see that big bank account, right? You can feel that. That's what we're talking about. That's the sign. That's the I am. That's you claiming and declaring your I amness through your imagination, through your assumptions that you already have and you already are that which you want to be. That's really the big message of Christmas. It's that I am. It's recognizing, becoming aware, and rising in consciousness to that divinity within you. That's really how to manifest what you desire out of nothing, because you're always manifesting it out of nothing. It's coming from the unseen into the seen, right? The unseen is the immaculate conception. Bringing it into the seen, manifesting in 3D reality, persisting in your wish fulfilled is bringing it into the seen, is the virgin birth of everything you want. I am your host, Tom Kearin, and this is the Be Something Wonderful studio of Higher Consciousness, where we help you level up and become the best version of yourself. Creators, thank you. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for commenting on the videos. Thank you for liking the videos. Thank you for considering joining the membership channel. There's a link below if you're interested. Also, We have a Facebook group that you can join and share insight and guidance with others. That's at facebook.com/groups/BeSomethingWonderful. We also have an Instagram and Twitter. You can follow us there at Tom Kearin, or just go to our website anytime at tomkearin.com or BeSomethingWonderful.com. Creators, with great love, with great light and infinite gratitude, on December 24th, 2022. See you soon.